Hello world, UB here, and this week we are drawing some ghosties for the cover of my tabletop RPG game, so let's get started. So it's almost officially time for my tabletop RPG to be published, and that's crazy. I'm self-publishing, it's not anything crazy fancy, but it is my first tabletop RPG, and I'm really excited for it. I think it has a really good premise, and I've been doing all of the artwork for the books as well. I actually sat down and wanted to just get some ideas of what I wanted the cover to look like, because that was one of the big ticket things that I didn't want to forget in publishing this. I sat down and started doing some doodles and stuff, and then all of a sudden, I just had this urge to draw it. Like, I hoped that I would have done this on stream, but when I started to put it together, I really didn't feel like being on camera, but I did feel like doing the drawing and doing the design. So I just kind of went for it. So you can see that I kind of started out with a very different idea here than I ended up going with, and that's okay, because I started out thinking about the artists that I really enjoy and how I wanted the game to look. The journal that I've been doing illustrations for is kind of a sketchy style, and I've seen this artist on Instagram. Her name is McCarthy, and she does dark art, so a lot of witches, vampires, characters from TV that are spooky. And she does specifically these portraits where there's a black oval and then the portrait is done inside that. And when I thought about this, I originally thought, well, maybe I want to do like a negative kind of drawing where the background is black and then I draw on it in white instead of white and draw on it with black. When I thought about it, I didn't really love that idea, and instead I kind of went with the McCarthy style that I've seen on her Instagram, and I really liked that idea, which is where I kind of started here. And then I also wanted to incorporate some aspects of Chad Savage's art. I've talked about Chad Savage on the channel here before, and he has a very sketchy, like very textured line style as well that I really admire. And so I went and looked at his ghosts that he's made in the past, and none of them 100% fit the bill of what I was thinking, but I really liked all of them. I'm kind of biased as to his art already, but I really enjoyed looking through them, and when I looked at them, they just weren't quite the style of ghost I was hoping for. Honestly, I had a hard time just nailing down what kind of ghost I wanted to put on this cover, because there's so many different types, and you can either go like sheet ghost, or you can go to like the corporeal person kind of vibe, or you can go like demonic. There's all sorts of avenues that a ghost can be, which is kind of beautiful if you think about it. A ghost can be as various and unique as the people they're based off of, which is really cool. But I wanted it to be clear that these are ghosts, so I ended up going with a sheet ghost kind of vibe, but I wasn't 100% sure when I first started. And eventually I kind of looked into Pinterest, which is one of my more favorite reference photo places, if you haven't caught on to that yet. And when I was looking through, I found some of these really cute ghosts that kind of just looked like globs. And I thought, oh, what if I take that sort of shape and put it into this like oval frame and kind of make them into negative space coming out of the white space of the piece, and I think that turned out really well. I was actually very proud of myself for coming up with that. All in all, it turned out really good, and then this last ghost that I came up with, the big guy, actually I played with on the back of my scratch piece of paper here, and he was kind of an afterthought. I really wanted him to have kind of this specific shape where he had his arms out and stuff, but otherwise I couldn't figure out what to do with his tail because, like, in this sketch, I don't love how it just wraps around the ghosties that are in negative space. Like, that doesn't add up. But when I put it into my drawing tablet, I was able to figure out how to put the ghostie's tail kind of behind this other ghost, and I think that added another level of dimension to it that I really like. For those of you who haven't noticed, I really love to put dimension into my designs, whether they're the Kraken posters and that sort of thing, or like different Photoshop designs and stuff. I haven't had a lot of chance to play with it in my drawings, but when it comes to designing something, I really like to create different levels of depth by slipping different things behind other objects and in front of other objects that you wouldn't normally expect. So an example of this would be if you have like a character with their hand out, making their fingertips go above the frame of the picture is a good way to create some depth. And I play with a lot of stuff like that, especially when it comes to putting type or copy on your designs. I really like to stick people in front of some letters and behind other letters, depending on where they sit in the design itself, and that's something I've been playing with a lot at work, but you haven't seen a whole lot on the channel. So I got to do a little bit of that with this ghostie's tail, and I think it turned out really well. And as far as the border around the actual frame goes, I started out by looking at the cards from the Gloom Second Edition card game. And this is one of my favorite games to play, but I don't get to play it a lot because not a lot of people are storytellers, and it really is a storytelling game. I hope that I can introduce some of my friends to it because it really is a hoot and a half if you have the energy for it. And it's got really cool artwork on the cards. The cards are actually vellum, so they're see-through, and there's different aspects to the game that make that important. But the art that goes on them, actually, most of them have this really ornate filigree border all the way around, and that's where the inspiration for the border came from. But I ended up just kind of taking this top part that was very much inspired by Gloom and then expanding on it with some leaves because it felt a little too formal to do a really ornate or filigree border. And on the bottom, I framed it with the grass of whatever cemetery or wherever these ghosts are. And so leaves felt right to stay with that natural theme. I have done these leaves, these vines before on the Mrs. Potts video where there were some witchy leaves going down her face and stuff. And so I just thought that they really fit the bill here. All's well that ends well. I think it turned out really, really good. And I think it's a good blend of spooky and cute and scary. I think that really encapsulates what this game is going to be. I'm really looking forward to it. Let me give you a little bit of a synopsis of what this game is, and then I'll be able to show you a little bit more in the coming weeks. So the Unfinished Business tabletop RPG game is a ghost hunting puzzle game where you, as players, are ghost hunters. And you can play a character that's pretty green to the gig, just trying out a gig economy app, didn't know what they were in for, or even a seasoned veteran. It's all up to you. And your goal in this game is to identify what type of ghost you're dealing with by collecting 3 different types of evidence. And then once you've figured out what kind of ghost you're dealing with, you'll be tasked with helping to lay the ghost to rest. You can mix and match different ghost types, maps, and objectives to make as many 1 to 3 session missions as you and your group would like. The Unfinished Business RPG is made to be a very low commitment yet engaging game for anyone with a spooky spirit. So this is written in my friend Joe's Spiral game system, and that's under Void Spiral Entertainment. So it's very, very new and relatively untested, but I think it's a lot of fun, and I've done a few test games that have worked out really well. It's based off of the PC game Phasmophobia, for those of you who are familiar, but Phasmophobia has had some recent updates that make it a very different game from what the tabletop RPG has panned out to be. I'm very, very excited for it. I have spent a lot of time over these last few months putting it together, and it's going to be helping raise money for Worldbuilders at the end of this month. So mark your calendars for November 23rd. I know that we had a little bit of a scheduling issue as far as that goes, but we are locked and ready to go for the November 23rd live stream to raise money for Worldbuilders, show you the Kraken room as it'll be done at that point. I will be streaming that on Twitch, YouTube, and hopefully Facebook. If technology cooperates, we shall see. Oh, you'll be able to buy this game, buy merch that has all sorts of designs from this game on it, and even just donate directly to Worldbuilders. So with all that being said, thank you so much for getting to the end of the video. I will give you 1,000 experience points just for that. It really does mean a lot. And thank you to my patrons, Mark, Nathaniel, Twyla, and Liam. You guys are rock stars. If you would like to see some behind the scenes stuff and get early access to most of my videos, feel free to check out my Patreon. Link is in the description. Don't forget to drink some water, and I will talk to you guys next week. Peace.